Hello everybody and welcome back to One Nerd to Rule Them All. And in today's video, we're once again diving into the world of Westeros as we unpack the complete tales of Aegon the Conqueror. We will also touch on his life with his sister wives Visenya and Rhaenys. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Aegon I Targaryen, perhaps better known as Aegon the Conqueror and Aegon the Dragon, was the first Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and King on the Iron Throne, having conquered 6 of the 7 kingdoms during the conquest. This Dragon Lord was the founder of the ruling Targaryen dynasty of Westeros. Aegon was born on Dragonstone in 27 BC to Lord Aeron Targaryen and Lady Valyna Velaryon. He had an older sister, Visenya, and a younger sister, Rhaenys. According to Velaryon and Targaryen tradition, Aegon married within the family. However, instead of only taking one sister to wife, as had been common, he married both of them. It is believed that he married Visenya out of duty, because as his elder sister, he needed to wed her to secure his succession, but he married Rhaenys out of love. It is said for every one night he spent with Visenya, Aegon spent 10 with Rhaenys. Aegon was a dragon rider and had claimed the dragon Balerion, also known as Balerion the Black Dread, prior to his marriage to his sisters. When Pentos and Tyrosh asked Aegon for his aid in their struggle against Volantis, Aegon, Lord of Dragonstone, flew to Pentos atop of Balerion to meet with the Prince of Pentos and the city's magisters. Aegon next flew to Lys, where he burnt a Volantene fleet before it could attempt to invade the city. Shortly after, Aegon returned to Dragonstone. As the Century of Blood came to an end, Aegon's interest in Westeros grew. He'd previously visited the citadel of Oldtown and the arbour in the Kingdom of the Reach with his elder sister Visenya, and he might have also visited Lannisport in the Kingdom of the Rock. He had a huge wooden table made, cut in the shape of Westeros, with a map of the 7 kingdoms of Westeros painted upon the surface. No borders were painted upon the painted table, however, as Aegon believed it should be 1 realm instead of 7. The Storm King, Argillic Durrandon, reached out to Aegon, proposing a marriage between Aegon and his only daughter, Princess Argella. All the lands east of the God's Eye, from the Trident to the Blackwater Rush, were offered as her dowry, although the lands did not belong to Argillic. His offer was an attempt to create a buffer between his own kingdom and that of Harrenhal, King of the Isles and the Rivers. Aegon spurned the offer, stating he had no need of a third wife, and instead offered his close friend and rumoured bastard half-brother, Orys Baratheon, as Argella's husband instead, in return for all the lands surrounding the Blackwater Bay, including those possessed by Argillic. Insulted, Argillic cut off the hands of Aegon's envoy and sent those back to Dragonstone, upon which Aegon called his councillors together. After 6 days of consulting, Aegon sent forth ravens to every lord in Westeros, declaring his claim to the throne. Aegon landed with his army on the eastern coast of Westeros at the mouth of the Blackwater Rush, where he constructed the wooden Aegon Fort. Houses Rosby and Stokeworth surrendered to his sisters quickly, and House Darkland and Mooton were quickly defeated in Aegon's first test. Before defeated lords gathered at the new Aegon Fort, Aegon was crowned with a Valyrian steel circlet by Visenya and held as king of all of Westeros by Rhaenys. He also displayed the 3-headed dragon symbol of House Targaryen for the first time. The Targaryen siblings departed the Aegon Fort, with Aegon marching northwest to the Riverlands to confront Harrenhal. Edmund Tully, Lord of Riverrun, declared for Aegon and led the Riverlords in revolt against the ruling Ironborn. When Harren refused to yield Harrenhal, Aegon attacked the gigantic new castle with Balerion, and House Hall was extinguished with the burning of Harrenhal. The next day, Aegon named Edmund as Lord of Paramount of the Trident. Meanwhile, Rhaenys and Orys defeated the Durrodans in the last storm, while Visenya fought the Arryns and secured Crackclaw Point. After regathering at Stony Sept, the Targaryen siblings advanced against the largest host of the 2 kings. The Targaryen dragons, Balerion, Meraxes and Vhagar, allowed Aegon to achieve a great victory at the Field of Fire, which resulted in the death of Mern IX Gardener, King of the Reach, and the surrender of Loren I Lannister, King of the Rock. Aegon then marched for Highgarden, where he named Harlan Tyrell as Lord Paramount of the Mandar after the castle's surrender. The Targaryens again reunited to face the host of Torrhen Stark, king in the north, but Torrhen chose to kneel to Aegon along with the trident instead of fighting a battle. Visenya returned to the Vale, where she achieved the surrender of the Arryns, whilst Rhaenys flew to Dorne in an unsuccessful mission to the Martells. Aegon meanwhile marched to Oldtown, which was surrendered to him by Lord Manfred Hightower upon the advice of the High Septon. Within the Starry Sept, the High Septon declared Aegon to be King of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, Lord of the Seven Kingdoms and Protector of the Realm. Aegon chose to date the beginning of his reign from the day the High Septon anointed him in Oldtown. Rather than ruling from Oldtown or Dragonstone, Aegon chose to make his seat King's Landing, the new settlement growing around the Aegon fort. He also took the swords of his defeated enemies, forging them into the Iron Throne. Aegon also began what would become known as the Small Council, as well as that as the Hand of the King, with Lord Orys Baratheon becoming his first hand. Aegon's first established law was the King's Peace, which forbid conflict in the realm without the leave of the Iron Throne. Aegon treated the defeated lords with respect and allowed each region to retain its own laws and customs, and for the lords to retain both the right of pit and gallows and the first night. Aegon often travelled the realm with 6 maesters, who educated him on each region's local customs and histories. During Aegon's conquest, the Lord of the Three Sisters had declared their independence and Cloud Lady Marla Sunderland as their queen. Following his coronation at Oldtown, King Aegon commanded Lord Torrhen Stark, the new Warden of the North, to end the rebellion, and he sent Queen Visenya Targaryen on Vhagar to accompany the Northern Army led by Sir Warwick Manderly. At the sight of them, the Sistermen abandoned their queen and installed her younger brother, Steffon, as their new lord. Steffon soon bent the knee, swore his fealty to House Arryn, and re-entered the King's Peace, ending the rebellion of the Sistermen. In 2 AC, Aegon turned his attention to the Iron Islands, where the Ironborn had been fighting for 2 years over the kingship. Leading the invasion of the several islands by several war fleets, Aegon landed on Great Wick with Balerion to deal with the contenders. Aegon personally cut down Corin Volmark with Blackfire, while the priest king Lodos walked into the sea, drowning himself. The other contenders quickly bent the knee. Aegon ignored the suggestions of making the Ironborn vassals to the Tullys of Riverrun or to the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, as well as the suggestion to exterminate the Ironborn by Dragonflame. Instead, Aegon allowed the Ironborn to name their own Lord Paramount, for which the Ironborn chose Vicon Greyjoy as Lord of the Iron Islands. In 3 AC, Aegon turned his attention back to Dorne, the only kingdom remaining unconquered. He first decided to try and bring Dorne under the rule of the Iron Throne through diplomacy. After a year of negotiations and no progress to show for it though, Aegon decided to take Dorne by force of arms. In 4 AC, Aegon launched a new invasion, continuing the War of Conquests. Though initially the conquest of Dorne seemed to succeed, it unravelled quickly, and the First Dornish War prolonged and lasted for 9 years, and knew many deaths and tragedies. One of these tragedies was the capture and mutilation hand of the king, Lord Orys Baratheon, by the Wile of Wile. Following his release from 2 years of captivity, Orys returned home lacking a sword hand, as did the men who'd been taken captive with him. Aegon, intent on revenge, released his dragons and burned the castles of the defiant Dornish lords. The greatest loss Aegon faced was the death of Queen Rhaenys Targaryen at Hellholt in 10 AC, when Meraxes fell from the sky with Rhaenys upon her back, after a shot from a scorpion took the dragon in the eye. The 2 years that followed are known as the Dragon's Wrath, as Aegon's wrath after Rhaenys' death knew no bounds. Aegon and Visenya placed bounties on the heads of the Dornish lords after Rhaenys' death, and in turn, the Dornish put bounties on the Targaryens. Aegon was attacked 3 times, with his guards saving his life twice. Visenya also defended her brother twice with Dark Sister, with one occasion occurring in 10 AC. This led to the forming of the elite royal bodyguard known as the Kingsguard, with Visenya personally choosing the men herself. The attempted conquest of Dorne was called to an end in 13 AC, after a visit from Princess Daria Martell, the daughter of Nymor Martell, the ruling prince of Dorne. Daria brought the skull of Meraxes and a letter with her, which she gave to Aegon. After reading the letter, Aegon flew on Balerion to Dragonstone. He returned back the next day and agreed to peace between Dorne and the Seven Kingdoms. Aegon kept good relations with Princess Daria. He visited Sunspear with his eldest son, Prince Aenys, in 23 AC to celebrate the 10th anniversary of the peace between the Iron Throne and Dorne. The remaining 24 years of Aegon's reign were peaceful, so much that the last 2 decades of his reign were called the Dragon's Peace by the Maesters of the Citadel. He spent much of his time consolidating his power by travelling throughout the Seven Kingdoms and building his capital at King's Landing. Aegon devoted half of every year to make these royal progresses. During his rule, he tread carefully with the faith of the Seven, so they would not oppose him. Aegon built a grand sept on Visenya's Hill and agreed to the construction of an even grander one known as the Sept of Remembrance on Rhaenys' Hill. King's Landing initially lacked walls, and likely reason for this was the Targaryens didn't believe they would need them, because the city was housing dragons. However, when he learned about a pirate fleet sacking the Tall Trees town in the Summer Isles in 19 AC, Aegon came to the realization that he and Visenya were not always in the city. As such, he ordered the construction of massive walls to be built around the city. Construction began in 20 AC and was complete in 26 AC. After the year 33 AC, the royal progresses continued, but were now made by his son, Aenys, and his wife, Alyssa, while the aging king remained at home. By this point, late in his reign, Aegon decided that the ramshackle of Aegon Fort was not a suitable seat for the king, so the structure was torn to the ground in 35 AC. Aegon moved his family and court back to Dragonstone, while he commanded the construction of what would later be called the Red Keep. Visenya was placed in charge of the building of the Red Keep, and it was rumoured that Aegon had done this so that he would not have to suffer her presence on Dragonstone. The Iron Throne remained at the building site instead of at Dragonstone, since it was too heavy to be moved. Now moving on to Aegon's heirs. In 7 AC, Aegon became a father for the first time when his younger sister wife Rhaenys gave birth to a son, Aenys. He was a sickly baby, and there were rumours that he'd been fathered by a singer instead of Aegon. Even though, once Aenys bonded with his dragon Quicksilver, his health improved, and the rumours faded away. However, Rhaenys' death in 10 AC had shattered the boy. Aegon grew desperate, and there were worries of whether or not Aenys would live. As Visenya by then had not gotten pregnant yet, some believed she was barren, and during the time when Aenys' health was still troubled, it was rumoured at court that Aegon might take another wife. Although Aegon refused to speak his mind on the matter, many lords and knights brought their young daughters to court. In 11 AC, Queen Visenya announced her pregnancy, and the next year she gave birth to Aegon's second son, Maegor. Aegon raised Aenys at King's Landing, and took him with him on his progressions. Occasionally, he let Aenys train with his Valyrian steel sword Blackfire. Lacking daughters, he married Aenys to a cousin, Lady Alyssa Velaryon, the daughter of his master of ships. In 22 AC, Aenys would have 6 children with Alyssa, 5 of whom were born during Aegon's reign. In 33 AC, Aegon made his final progress throughout Westeros, during which he visited Winterfell. Afterwards, Prince Aenys and his wife Alyssa made the progresses in Aegon's stead. In 37 AC, on Dragonstone, while telling his 2 eldest grandsons, Aegon and Viserys, the tales of his conquest at the Painted Table, Aegon died from a stroke at the age of 63. Aegon was cremated on Dragonstone, and his funeral pyre was set aflame by Vhagar. Blackfire was burnt along with him, but it was later retrieved from the pyre by Maegor. Although Aegon's reign had largely been peaceful, many of his subjects desired to go back to the days of old, when they were still 7 kingdoms. Others wanted vengeance for the death of their loved ones in war, and yet others saw the Targaryens as abominations. Because of this, the tumultuous reign of both Aegon I and Maegor I was filled with battles and chaos. Because Aegon had wielded Blackfire, possession of the Valyrian steel sword had been seen as granting legitimacy to its subsequent holders. This blade would go on to be held by many future kings to come. This is the complete tale of Aegon the Conqueror. I hope you enjoyed this first dive into the characters of Westeros, and if you did, then please like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. Anyway, that'll be it from me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.